Welcome to manna-fest, hosted by international evangelist, teacher, and author Perry Stone. Enjoy unique insight into prophetic and practical truth. It's time to feast on fresh manna, so get ready to be blessed and encouraged. And now, here is your host and teacher, Perry Stone.
Last week on the manna-fest telecast, I did a study where we talked about at death. I call that 4 seconds from eternity, a study of what happens before a person dies. Now, I'm going to do one I call the Secrets of Paradise, and I want to deal for a moment about children and miscarriages. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes that at death, the spirit goes back to God who gave it. David in Psalms says this, "You knew me and you knew the parts of my body when I was curiously wrought in the lower parts of the earth." David also said, "You've taught me to number my days." God said to Jeremiah in chapter 1, now this is an interesting verse, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and ordained you to be a prophet." Now, we do know that God has a foreknowledge of God. Now, there is a difference between foreknowledge and predestination. I'm not going to talk about predestination, but I want to talk about foreknowledge. That the Lord knew you before you were born or conceived in your mother's womb. The Lord ordained you for certain things in life, and you have to follow His will to do those. But there is a mystery to the Spirit. You are in 1 Thessalonians 5:23, a body, a soul, and a spirit. You know what the body is. It's the flesh part that the book of Genesis says, from dust you came, to dust you shall return. This body you're looking at, should it go into a grave over time, is processed, and death causes the body to go back to the dust. Now, if you're a soul and a spirit, the soul is connected to the intellect and the will and the mind. The brain helps control the 5 senses of hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touching. But the soulish man, the soul, can either be spiritual or carnal. In other words, let me say it this way. The soul is like the heart of the spirit man. Now the spirit, if it came out of your body, would look exactly like you. Someone asked me one time, they say, "I'm a very heavy person. When I die, will I be skinny?" I said, "I don't know, but I think everybody I know hopes so." But the reason I say it looks like you, if you remember on the Mount of Transfiguration, you had Moses and you had Elijah. And here's what's interesting. Peter knew it was Moses and Elijah, but he never saw a picture of them. So by revelation of the Holy Spirit, now watch what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13, "We will be known even as we were known." Now this is how we know that even though we pass away, and let's say Jesus, let's just say, I'm not saying this, read this, I'm not saying this, but I'm saying this. If Jesus did not come for another 100 years, since I'm about 59 years of age, 50 or 59 years of age, depending on when you're watching this, then I won't be here, and Pam won't be here, but I will know Pam that she was my wife in heaven. Now, there's no marriage nor given in marriage in heaven. Lord have mercy. Do you remember the Sadducees came to Jesus and said, a woman gets married, he dies. Married and died, married and died, married and the husband dies. Lord, 7 dead husbands. I wouldn't touch that woman, brother. I'm going to tell you something. Because everybody she marries dies. Okay? That was a joke. And in the resurrection, whose wife will she be? And Jesus said, don't you understand? In heaven, they're not married nor given in marriage, okay? So that's a point to make. But you will know your family in heaven. Now, I'm going to tell you some stories real quick, and we're going to get into the thing about the children in just a moment. Barton Green is a friend of mine who is a very famous writer. He's written for most ministers. He helped do movies for TBN. Barton had a heart attack. And Barton says, I don't know if I died to the point where my spirit left my body, but that appears to be what happened. He had a grandfather in the Church of God named G.W. Lane that was a very famous preacher. And G.W. Lane always was in a suit and tie. He loves suit and ties. He's always in a suit and tie. When Barton leaves his body, he goes into a fog. He sees a light in the distance, and as he walks through the fog, he sees the outline of what appears to be two men, and one of them is talking with his hands. As he gets closer, out of the fog steps his grandfather, G.W. Lane, who had been dead for many years, and he said he looked like he was in his 30s. Looked very handsome. And he had looked like a beautiful tailored three-piece suit on. Well, Brother Stone, I thought we wore robes in heaven. We get robes in heaven, but wait a minute, just hang with me. Robes is what they wore in the Roman time. Robes is what they wore in Jesus' day. Robes is what they wore in the Greek time. We dress different today. I don't want to tell you about, after 9/11, a vision I had of my dad, and I saw people who had died on 9/11. And anyway, that's another story. I'm going to get so sidetracked, I got to stay on subject. Now, G.W. Lane says to Barton, Barton, I want to talk to you. And he starts telling Barton, I know, because we get information in heaven, there's 5 things you haven't done, so you've got to go back to earth. And Barton said, since I have been back, I have started doing all 5 of those things my grandfather said that God told him I would do. But here's where it gets heavy. After he talks to him, G.W. turns and says, now I've got to go back. And Barton takes a step and he said, Barton, look at me. I told you, you can't come where I am yet. You will one day, because he's in paradise. G.W. Lane has died. His soul and spirit's left his body. 2 Corinthians 12, he's in paradise. Even though G.W. Lane's body's in the ground. See, a lot of people teach soul sleep. You know, that at death, the soul and spirit sleeps in the body, because Paul uses the term, we shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed. But sleep was an early church metaphor, and a metaphor in the Greek time to describe death, because when a person dies, they look like they're sleeping. So even Jesus said, you know, when the little girl was dead, he said, she's not dead, but she's sleeping, and they laughed at him, okay? So the point is, the soul and spirit does not sleep where it is. It goes to be with the Lord, or if they're sinners, they go into hell. Read Luke 16, it is not a parable, where the rich man died and the beggar died. Now someone says, wait a minute, if the righteous man Lazarus was in the heart of the earth, yes, but at the crucifixion, Jesus took the souls and spirits of the righteous people out and now took them to heaven. You don't go down under the earth now as a believer when you die. If you die in Christ, angels release the spirit and soul out of your body, your death, and they take you immediately to the presence of God, and there you wait in paradise. So, track with me here for just a few moments. Going back to G.W. Lane. So, Barton made a second attempt to move forward and was stopped again. And G.W. said, Barton, listen to me. If you cross a certain threshold, you will not go back. You'll stay here. You go back. And then G.W. says this. You're going to love this. He said, there's one more thing I need to tell you. He said, I feel like I need to let you know this. He says, Barton, your son is very proud of you. And then Barton says, I came back into my body, and he said, Perry, everything that happened to me was not an hallucination. It was not a figment of my imagination. It happened, but it threw me off when he said, I have a son, because I was married and divorced and never had a son. He said, a girl never got pregnant with me. He said, it's not that. Then I remembered, when I was married, my wife got pregnant and had a miscarriage. And he said it was a boy. And he said, oh my goodness, the boy that my wife miscarried is with the Lord. Now, the spirit of a baby enters the baby at the moment of conception. This is why abortion is wrong. Some politicians believe, who are Christians, that the soul and spirit gets into the baby at 6 months, and that the blood in the body is connected to the soul and the spirit. But the life of the flesh is the blood. The blood is not the life of the soul and spirit. because the soul and spirit doesn't have to have blood. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. The soul and the spirit is connected to the spirit realm and not the physical realm. Y'all tracking with me? Former presidents, not the president now, Donald Trump, but former presidents used to believe that the soul and spirit does not come into the baby till the umbilical cord is cut. And that's why a former president years ago accepted partial birth abortion. Because he met some people that said it's only flesh until the cord is cut and then it breathes on its own. That's the soul and spirit. That is not true. In the Bible, the holy thing which is born of you shall be called the Son of God. The name of the baby is given 4 places in the Bible. The name of the sex, which it was going to be a son, is given in the Bible. And the woman is called mother when the infant is not more than 2 weeks conceived. Now, point being, the reason a miscarried baby has a spirit is because it comes the moment of conception. Do you know how many times a man and woman, husband and wife, gets together, consummates, and they can't have children? Then all of a sudden, at one point, after years, they consummate, no birth control. They consummate after years and all of a sudden a child is born. What was the difference? Ready? The difference was, and I had a lady, I wish she'd have got me this article, but I had a nurse that was studying years ago, and she said, when they do the test tube with the egg and the sperm, they know it works because a light burst happens. The spirit force, the eternal spirit just hit the egg and the sperm, all right? Then, as the infant grows physically, the spirit and soul will grow physically. So, Margarita Davis, a long time ago, was dying in a bed and went and saw an infant paradise. And all these little babies that had died, and infants miscarried, it was like a nursery in heaven, and each one had an angel watching over them. And they would grow like they would on earth. They would grow to a certain size, and they would be released to another level of paradise. And they would teach them about the stories of Jesus and about who He was and what He did. Then they go to a children's paradise. Now, my wife's best friend was Tracy Davis years ago. She's got many friends now, but Tracy Davis. Tracy was this really cute little short Italian girl, and she was getting ready to move to Cleveland because when Pam found out she's going to have a baby, which was Jonathan, Tracy said, I'm going to be the lifelong babysitter of your family. Sweetest girl you ever met in your life. She's killed in a wreck in Birmingham, Alabama, and this was years later. I'm going fishing in Baton Rouge, and I go to this hotel late. I'm sorry, I said Baton Rouge. We were going from Baton Rouge to the coast to fish. We got in real early in the morning, like must have been 1 o'clock at night to the hotel. I'm exhausted, and when I get completely exhausted, it's when I see things by the Spirit of God. I don't understand that, but that happens. I went out in the Spirit, and I went to paradise. I've only seen it one time. The cities of paradise are made based on the time frame you lived in. Everybody that lived in Jesus' day, all of paradise looks like the Roman Empire. Columns. I mean, like this here. It's most beautiful. And they even look and dress in outfits from that time frame. And they all stay in that same time. I'm not saying they stay, they can cross over. I saw cities that don't laugh at me when I tell you this. I saw cities made of emerald, where every building was an emerald, and they looked like skyscrapers. And I said, Lord, why are they this way? He said, because the people who lived in cities, who are believers that love cities, get to live in a city in paradise. They get to have cities. So I see a man whose name was Clyde Whitmire. I hadn't seen him in years, got saved in a ministry, and he's saying, Perry, look at me. Look at me. I'm not crippled anymore. Look at my leg. He was jumping around. Can I tell you this? I didn't know he died a few years ago from the time I had that. I didn't know he was dead. I saw his spirit in paradise. So then God says, let me show you where the children are. And I hear this voice, but I don't see angels, but I hear the voice. I'm transferred into this, and this is so cool. there's a beautiful mountain, and God has made these kids their own little houses. And they're kids' houses. They're not like an adult. They're like you ever seen a tree house? All these kids have these homes, I would say 15 feet long, 8 to 10 feet deep, and they get to stay in these houses. And all the kids are together. And they're just one after, and they're just like perfected. And they reminded me of the homes I saw in Italy and Romania, but they're kids' homes, just like some a kid would play in. They're all over the place. So then I go in and I hear this singing. I hear kids singing. This is the coolest thing. So I step into this arena, and there are hundreds of kids, and there's Tracy leading them. So when I came out of this, man, you talk about, you try to fish after you've had that. You're like, oh, Jesus. And I said, why did I see this? And the Lord dealt with me in my spirit, said, tell Tracy's mom and sister what you saw. Well, I did find out when I got back that Dalton, Georgia, that Claude Whitmire had died about a year or two before I ever had this, and I didn't know he had died. I say to Tracy's mom, I was preaching in Aswell, Alabama, I said to Tracy's mom, I saw Tracy. I do not know what she liked to do on earth because we just basically knew her by her coming to the meetings and hanging with Pam. But I saw her with children, and her sister says, oh my Lord, that's what she always wanted to do, was work with children. I said, are you kidding me? No. Children's church, children, all she talked about was helping children. So here's the point I want to make about people who depart this life. We think that when a person has passed away, there are people, and I have some really good friends that believe this teaching, and I don't argue with them, but they believe that the soul and spirit is sleeping in that body, and wherever they bury it, that's where the body will be. And then at the resurrection, we call it the rapture, the resurrection, the soul and spirit will rise from the grave. Then what about that verse in 1 Thessalonians 4 that says, those who are dead in Christ, I'm paraphrasing it, will the Lord bring with him when he returns. Bring with him. Then the dead in Christ shall rise first. The body, a new body, a resurrected body has to meet with soul and spirit. But the soul and spirit comes out of paradise, 2 Corinthians 12, to meet with the body at the resurrection. Okay, I hope you're I keep saying this on this one. I hope you're tracking with me. All right, so we have that issue there. So right now, if you have a mother, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, whatever, a family member that has gone to be with the Lord, they're not in the grave. That's why we go, look, my mama's side is Italian. I have kissing cousins. Anybody know what I'm talking about? No, I have the greatest family. I love my mama's side of the family. I love my daddy's side too, but my mom's side of the family is all Italian. This is really funny. So I go to a funeral of one of Granddad's relatives, and all the Italians, we're all in there, hey, hallelujah. You know, they're hugging people. You're going to get kissed and hugged 50 times by 20 people. They do it 3 times, okay? Hug you 3 times. I love it. So I walked up to Granddad. I said, well, there they are. I said, the shell's there, but the nut's gone. He started laughing. He said, what? Now explain that one. I said, the soul and spirit is in the body, so they're gone, but the shell is still here. So when you go into the funeral home of a believer, where that's passed away, this is why we grieve for a period of time. We are sorrowful of losing our loved ones. But I can tell you something. When I lost my granddad, I cried one time, but it's hard to cry when you know they're still there. Not in the body. Come on. Amen. They are more alive now than they were in the body because they're with the Lord. And then you have the hope we're going to all be together again, right? So when my daddy died, I could hardly cry because my dad, before he died, I said, Dad, you know you're going. Yes, son, I'm going to go before long. I said, what do you think death's going to be like? And he just thought, we were in a car, he getting out of the car. He said, I believe it'll be glorious. So how can I weep as though we weep as those who have no hope? For we believe that if Christ raised from the dead, the loved ones that we have will raise from the dead. And so what I'm saying to you is I want to encourage those of you who know the Lord that when someone passes who knows the Lord, it's okay to have sorrow, but don't get into grief because grief is a spirit. And if you ever start grieving, you can get into a grieving cycle that you can't function, you can't do anything, you can't cook, you can't go out with people because you're in such grief. The Jews have a grieving process of 7 days, and then they release that grief out, and every year they have a little memorial where they remember that person. But their idea is this: if you believe in the resurrection, you should not live in grief of the departing of the loved one, because the resurrection brings them back out of the grave again. Several years ago, my wife had a miscarriage, and I won't go into the whole story, but I had a dream. I had 2 dreams years ago. You've heard me tell this one time on manna-fest at a conference. I saw 2 little girls, and now this is 1988, 89, somewhere in there. One girl, I said, "What's your name?" And she says, "My name is Amanda." I said, "Who are you?" She said, "I'm the little girl you're going to have." We had no kids. "Who's this?" And she says, "This is Rochelle, my sister." Now, Rochelle was tiny, hugging a stuffed animal, and I could tell something was wrong with her. I could tell by the look. I don't know if it was Down syndrome. I don't know what it was, but I knew she was deaf and couldn't talk. And I thought, "Oh my Lord, I have a little girl that can't talk and can't hear." Oh my. I dreamed of them twice. When Pam had the miscarriage, we believe it was Rochelle, because she got pregnant again, and guess who was born? Amanda. And she was that little prissy girl I saw. I'm not kidding. Okay. Pam asked the Lord one day, "Lord, Perry saw 2 girls, but why did Rochelle go?" And the Lord said, "Would you wanted me to bring her to earth in that condition when you have to take care of the ministry, you have to take care of Perry, and you're homeschooling your daughter?" And God said, "I saw in the future that the stress on you would have been too much to run a worldwide ministry." But years later, a woman did not know the story from California. She didn't know this. She writes me a letter and says, "Dear Perry and Pam, I don't know if Pam ever had a miscarriage, but my son died, and the Lord let me see him in paradise. And I met a black-haired girl that looked like she was about 5 or 6 years old. And I said, 'Who are you?' She said, 'I'm Perry and Pam Stone's daughter.'" The woman never heard the story, never knew Pam had a miscarriage. And she said, "She looks a lot like Pam, and she's a genius." I said, "She got that from her daddy, all right?" She got that from her. So listen to me. If you've lost a baby, if you've lost a child, they're with the Lord. Mama, if you're not saved, you're never going to see that baby again. You're only going to see that child. And those children grow up in paradise, okay? They grow up to be a certain age. I had a story I was going to tell. I'm running out of time again. But please serve the Lord, because the best is yet to come for the children of God. We're going to come to this city one day and rule and reign with Christ. Now, I've spent 2 programs talking about the secrets beyond the grave, or the secrets of eternity, or life. This is a subject I have loved since I was a teenager, and I hope some of the things we share with you will help you and be a blessing to you and encourage you, especially if you've lost a family member. Please stay tuned for a very special offer that we have. And if you want to contact our office, they'll tell you how to get material on the subject I'm preaching on if you want more material on that subject. All right, we'll be back in just a minute. Again, the city of Jerusalem, it's a beautiful day. Let's give God the glory. Amen.
Perry Stone is now making available his newest book, This Season of Angels. In this study, Perry will answer the following questions. How can I discern if an angel is present? Why do angels appear in dreams and yet look like men and not angels with wings? Early Christians taught there is an angel of healing. What is his name? When a loved one dies, does a death angel enter their room and remove their spirit? How do angels help me battle demonic activity attacking my family? What is the biblical basis for asking angels to help reach my unsaved family members? These and many more questions are answered in Perry Stone's newest landmark book, This Season of Angels. Discover how global prophetic activity increases angelic activity in the last days through visions and dreams. Learn from Genesis 19 about how angels at times can appear in human form. Perry also answers 21 questions about angels, including biblical evidence that at times animals can see or sense an angel, and how parents can pray and ask God for angels to guard and protect children. This hardcover 207-page book contains 12 dynamic chapters that explore fascinating truths that will enlighten your understanding on the subject of angels. When you order this book, Perry is including a new 2-audio CD teaching set, Defeating Satan's Toughest Attacks. Perry will reveal how to deal with depression, oppression, and suicidal thoughts, and how to defeat the spirit of the double curse. Order the new book and audio CD set online at perrystone.org or call the toll-free number 1-888-21-BREAD. That's 1-888-212-7323 and ask for offer number ANG131. You may also send a donation of $30 or more and request offer ANG131. The address is Perry Stone, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. We look forward to hearing from you soon.
You know, this book on angels is a brand new hardcover book. I want you to get your copy along with the audio CDs of this special offer, because there are some things in here. For example, I really realized after studying this that angels are released in a more intense level during major prophetic seasons. And the closer we get to the time of the end, there's going to be manifestations of angels that are going to come into rooms. People are going to be able to feel them and sense them, but you need to understand how they operate, how they work, and how to discern an angel. What about dreams? Angels can appear in dreams, but they usually don't appear with wings. That's a misconception. They appear as a human, but how do you know it's an angel? The book will explain all of this. Please order your copy today. We'd love to get it into your hands. Thank you so much for watching Manifest. You know, we have at OCI so many things going on. We have a Tuesday night service every Tuesday night. We hope you join that. We have a live prayer at our prayer barn every Thursday night at 6 o'clock. You can watch it and send in your prayer request. So many things going on. And we're going to have some great conferences next year. The Warrior Fest for young people, the International Prophetic Summit, the main event in the fall. And we would love it for you to come to Cleveland, Tennessee and be a part. Now, to keep up with my itinerary, go to perrystone.org, because there's a lot of changes in the itinerary this year, and see where we're going to be coming to in January all the way through the month of May. We're actually coming to South Carolina, we're coming to Mississippi. We're going to go to a lot of places we've never been to before. I had told you on a previous program how the Lord has been dealing with me, that one of the things I do, I'm a creature of habit. My wife says, you are more of a creature of habit than anybody I've ever seen. You go to a restaurant for 5 years, you order the same thing, you never try anything new. You go to the same churches for 20 and 30 years. But boy, the Lord has really dealt with me. Go to places that you have not ministered before. Now, we will be going back, of course, to some places we've been, but the reason I believe is there is a hunger. People say that folks in the United States are not hungry. I really don't believe that, because when you go and travel and meet people, people are very hungry for the presence of God, and they're hungry for revival, and they're hungry for God to transform their lives. Addictions and pornography addictions and alcohol and drug addiction, all this is out there. It's getting worse, and the only thing that can save us is a powerful move of the delivering power of God. Help me pray for that. Would you do it? See you next week.